Thank you so much for still being here. I'm not positive that given the choice I would be doing the same. So anyway, the long title to my paper is Integrating Problem-Based Learning and Research Skill Development, an example from a master's teacher leader course. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So in a nutshell, essentially, this talk is a little bit about a pilot study that I undertook recently, just taking 4 recent courses out of 13 possible ones in 86 students and starting to ask a couple of questions based on this course that was a problem to solution course where teachers were asked, these are working teachers, were asked to identify areas of concern or areas in need of improvement within their schools. And basically what I did is take the information from the course, generally assignments, outcomes, end of course surveys, and I said, well, is what we just did, our problem to solution project, does it align with the RSD model? Does it align with the OPS, the Optimize and Problem Solving model? And generally we found yes, very close alignment with both of those. And then also I'm asking an additional question, did the students perceive value of this kind of authentic workplace learning? And those answers were based on end of course surveys. And then finally, I want to spend a few minutes kind of talking about and so what. So we have this information, what does that do in terms of really developing theory or structure or elements that you want to be looking for authentic learning and engaged student learning. Okay, I'm going to divide this presentation into 3 parts. Quickly go over what the course and the students, a little kind of contextual information, talk about the findings from the pilot study, and then also talk about these next steps and the kind of getting to theory is what I'm calling it. It's like we have a lot of models, which I've certainly found here in this conference, a lot of different ideas that I run into in different places. So what can we as faculty do with it? What can we who are developing programs do with it? How is that going to help us structure programs, course-to-course integration, and really assess learning overall. The course and the students. Essentially, this was a course that was a new course. It was a required leadership course in a teacher preparation master's program that was undergoing some revision, and the teachers were generally young, almost all working teachers. Levels were everything from preschool, through our high school. All subject matters. Many of them were from the very ruralest and poorest districts in Appalachia. Some of them were from large urban areas. I had students who were in New York State, so it was this broad range. So I was going, damn, what am I going to do? I'm not even a teacher preparation person. So first of all, this is not my department. I don't know, I'm not the social studies expert, I'm not the maths expert, I'm not the preschool expert. I have no expertise in all the stuff that they're learning in their preparation program, yet I'm supposed to teach them leadership because now we have this new integration of leadership. So this began in 2013, and this is what I knew. First of all, I went oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But I did know a couple of things. I certainly knew that this was really a result of a national change in teacher preparation in the United States, all aligned with educational reform and accountability movement. We knew that the focus was going to be on evidence-based decision making, right? That is the tone, that is what you hear now in education, and there was a real need for, an increased need for highly qualified teachers. there's actually, you know, accreditation that indicates whether your teachers are highly qualified, which is partially why people were taking this master's program, not only for rank increase and increase in pay, but also to qualify as highly qualified. And I knew that that also meant that in the education field, that it meant that as teachers, they were going to be tasked with having to collaborate on meaningful school change, and, you know, looking at data for decision making. The course itself, I was really put together a kind of a problem-based learning model, which essentially has this cycle. You might see some little differences, but basically you identify a problem, you use evidence or context to really clarify what the problem is. In our case, we do a problem model and do some literature to see what have other people done about this problem, you know, come up with some change processes, draft some possible solutions, modify those, and that is essentially kind of how the course worked. All of this being done at the same time at a distance and online only. So you had some additional complications of getting that accomplished. The other thing that I did in the model, partially because I have an evaluation background, is we did logic models. And this is just kind of a simplistic view of a logic model where you sort of really look at the inputs and the influences, and you try to really do kind of explicit understanding of the actors, actions, and outcomes, and really kind of develop reasoning chains or cause and effect kind of models, which really going to help you often to clarify really what actions, you know, are not leading to the outcomes you want, things like that. So that's kind of an aside. Pilot study and the findings. Essentially, in this case, I used assignments. I used an end of course of student evaluations. I just took 4 recent courses because they were very consistent. There had been no changes in the end of course survey, things like that. So I used those, and basically was trying to answer one of my first questions is, did the problem and solution project align very well to RSD, which is something I knew because I had used it with doctoral students, and also with the optimized problem solving model, and really see if those kind of aligned. And so one of the things I did, you don't really need, is went through the assignments and tried to figure out where different things, you know, where did they really line up with the RSD, with the idea that, well, this makes sense. This is very early in their program, but eventually they will have to do action research projects, and how can we start kind of really scaffolding research abilities with the reality that in the end they're going to have to be able to collect data and collect evidence and work within the schools, you know, really doing their own research. So, and then the other thing I also did is looked at the kind of optimized problem solving, because that was obviously very similar to my problem to solution, and basically saw a lot of the kind of characteristics or elements that people use when they use this model were the same as far as defining the problem, gathering information, critiquing and analyzing, even using graphics, tables, and themes. So a lot of these things were just aligning really nicely, which was great. And then the third kind of, in order to really kind of test this, what I did is took some of my end of course survey, took questions and really kind of fit them appropriately into the OPS, the OPS model, and then just did a Chromebooks alpha to check for internal validity and things like that. So, you know, we're trying to make it at least, you know, to see to what extent it really fit. And that seemed to work pretty well. And then the third thing I really did was really more of a qualitative. I had several open-ended questions, and so then took those and really tried to ask whether the students perceive this to be of any value for them. And particularly in line with the fact that what my interest was not to make them better math teachers or better social studies teachers, but really to start figuring out a way that they could concretely and actionably feel and act like leaders or change agents within their school, because that was essentially our goal from the leadership department in working with these teachers. So when I asked the question, the single most valuable thing I learned in the course, did a variety of different phases of coding and came up really with, a couple of things. They liked the kind of this processual step-by-step approach. Essentially, the scaffolding was more directed at the beginning, far less directed at the end. Everyone selected a problem appropriate to their authentic work environment. But generally, they liked that logical process of identifying current needs, finding out, how to come up with some means to address it, communication and participating with others. They kind of, really liked the fact because we figured communication and understanding stages of concern would be important. And also that research was fitting with the problem-solving process, which was something which was really nice to see because I wasn't sure about that initially. And then most of all, this idea of personal agency, that, I have the power to work with my peers and colleagues to make our school and work environment better, that sort of thing, which was kind of the ultimate goal of the leadership course. Then in the end, what do I know now with this pilot study? Certainly I know enough that with this practitioner-specific focus that I've been looking at with this course, that it's probably, in itself, contextually, it's interesting. In terms of hearing from young teachers what they think are problems or policy issues, you see some real consistency, you see some regional differences, you see some interesting things that are well worth contextually dealing with. Certainly it does appear that that it's well worth using extant or existing data to then maybe break the rules and use kind of post hoc model to really see the extent that this information relates to these MELT models that we're talking about. And then long term, really in terms of strategic planning, really looking how this course method really fits with the other leadership courses that we're doing with the teachers, and long term how that may be assisting their action research projects at the end of their teacher preparation course. So that's another thing that we're looking at right now. And kind of in conclusion, that, which is kind of something I've been thinking about, is this is a small study. This certainly doesn't, cure world hunger, but it does, I think, allow us to look at these models and really have some more tested, some more measured, some more specific evidence that I really think will, again, add to this base of knowledge leading to kind of theory development, refinement of models, kind of that systematic and predictive theory, which I guess as an academic I just can't leave alone. I kind of want to do. And then finally, in conclusion, I think I'm kind of optimistic. I kind of took seriously the call that John Willison had presented, where he talked about he wanted to create connections and delineate a priori frameworks that might provide fruitful and broad-based findings. And I really think this is one little step towards really finding what elements or factors are essential to really develop this kind of student-centered curriculum and leading to that quote-unquote idealized level of autonomous learning. So thank you.